When people do a TEDx talk, usually they speak about their field of expertise. I have expertise in two very distinct fields, wine and wine law and aviation. Today, I'm going to speak to you about neither. Instead, I'm going to tell you something something I haven't studied, but have a lot of experience in. And it all starts with a conversation. Hi, where are you from? Oh, I live in Geneva, Switzerland. Huh, but where did you move from before that? Oh, I moved from Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, but like where before that? I went to law school in Chicago and university in New York. Okay, but like where are you really from? Like where did you grow up? Oh, I grew up in Chicago, but the Philippines as well. Now I realize that we all have conversations like this, and the questions are coming from people who have no ill intent, but just human curiosity. However, for people who already feel like they don't belong, this question seems to say, I know you say you are from insert place here, but I can tell by your name or by your accent or by your skin color that you and your family aren't really from here. Perhaps some of you struggle and also feel this difficulty finding a sense of belonging. If we understand and learn about this struggle, I believe it can help us connect with each other instead of seeing the differences that break us apart. I have some experience in feeling different, of being the only woman, Asian, brown person in a room. One of the reasons is yes, because I'm a person of color, but also because I am a third culture kid, adult. The third culture kid is somebody who grew up in a culture other than their parents. For me, I spent my formative years in the United States, but my parents are both from the Philippines. I felt like I had one foot in the US and the other in the Philippines. In the US, I was never American enough. And in the Philippines, I was never Filipino enough. So I found it hard to find a place where I truly belonged. In the Philippines and to other Filipinos, although I cook and eat the food every day, and food is a very, very big part of our culture, I understand and read the language, but I don't speak it, not Filipino enough. I sound American. I was born and raised there, but I'm still brown. Not American enough. When I was an attorney, for every 3 male attorneys, there was 1 female attorney. Not male enough. When I decided to follow my passion and work in the wine industry, not European or male enough. I became a Dame Chevalier de Ordre de Côte de Champagne, was nominated a Swiss ambassador of Champagne in Switzerland by the CIVC. And I was featured in many newspapers and magazines, but including Paris Match. But no matter how many accomplishments, I still had a hard time feeling like I truly belonged. This idea of belonging is much more present to me now that I'm raising a second generation of third culture kids. What do I want to teach them about the difficulties of belonging, of feeling connected, of their Filipino culture? To tackle that question, I first had to answer something in me. For a long time, I felt ashamed of being different, of not fitting into the mold of the typical American, of having chicken adobo and rice in my lunchbox instead of the American peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Growing up in the US, I never saw anyone who looked like me on TV. When I was little, every morning I would wake up and I would pinch my nose with the hope that this continued action would make my nose a little less flat and would make me look a little more like those people on TV. In the Philippines, lighter skin is more desirable. Basically, if you're lighter, more attractive, the more successful you'll be. Now, this is not unique to the Philippines, and skin bleaching is an $8 billion industry around the world. This perpetuates the internalized racism that many people of color, including myself, struggle with. Now you compare that to the US or Europe, where everyone is searching for that after holiday sun-kissed glow, and you can see how teenage me would be very confused. Over the years, I pushed away my Filipino heritage because it made me feel different. And it took a long time before I accepted it, and thus myself. I do not want my children or anyone else to feel like this. I think the act of deciding to accept these differences and realize the biases that you have towards others and to yourself can spark a revolution. One of the most important questions in the Filipino vocabulary is, have you eaten yet? It can mean many different things, including, I love you, how are you, I'm proud of you, I miss you, and so much more. For many Asian cultures, it's difficult and even discouraged to talk about your feelings, but you can always talk about food. If my parents and I would get into a fight, there would never be any further talk or an apology, but sometimes I would walk down the stairs and my favorite meal would be bubbling away on the stove, and I knew all would be forgiven. I told you food was a big deal in Filipino culture. Another one of the fundamental tenets of Filipino culture is one of communal unity, work, and cooperation. We even have a word for it, Bayanihan. Back in the day, the Filipino houses used to be made of wood and woven coconut leaves. When a family wanted to move their house, the community would come together, put the house on wooden poles, and literally move the house. This is a bayanihan. While this happens a lot more rarely now, the Bayanihan spirit of communal unity lives on. And it's even grown to encompass the idea of helping others to achieve a certain goal without expecting anything in return. For a traditional Bayanihan, after the house was moved, the family most likely prepared a massive feast for everyone involved because obviously food is very important to Filipinos. Now, the bayan part of Bayanihan means community, nation, town, or country. In our increasingly globalized world, what does this mean? Where is your bayan? My bayan is in the Philippines, in the United States, and now in Switzerland. I've been living in Switzerland for 12 years now, and I realized a few years ago that I feel more at home in Switzerland than I do in the Philippines or the United States. And a few months ago, when I decided to do this TEDx talk, I started to realize something beautiful about belonging. The place where you belong is one you get to build. My parents constructed this in the United States by surrounding us with other Filipinos who, while not necessarily related to us, became our family. And I am not 100% sure who actually is or is not related to me, but I do consider them my family. I've done the same thing in Switzerland, surrounding my family with wonderful people from all over the world who have become our chosen family. This family has many different cultures, and I realized that instead of raising third culture kids, I have the privilege of raising pan-culture kids who have the privilege of being connected with and learning about many different cultures. One of the strongest influences will be our Filipino heritage because I'm finally very proud of my culture and realize its values are inherent in who I am. I am still discovering this Filipino culture. My story isn't over yet, and in fact, it's just beginning. Part of belonging is accepting ourselves through our own faults and bias and shame and everything in between. I was raised in the United States. I am American. I celebrate what makes me different. I'm proud of my Filipino heritage. I live in Geneva, Switzerland, and I belong there with my family and the Bayan that we've built, because you can't move that house yourself. Now, you know my struggle and the journey that other people of color and third culture kids have been on. I've shared my fears, my weaknesses, and my triumphs with you. So now I do believe that you are a part of, that you belong to, my global Bayan. So welcome. Have you eaten yet? Thank you.